All right, welcome back to another session of Mr. V's history. And today we'll be looking at Hitler's aggressive foreign policy, and we'll be specifically looking at creating a Central European empire. Now, if you look at the picture over here, you can see right over here that this character is actually Adolf Hitler. Now you can see two criteria in the picture, or actually three. You can see three criteria in the picture that depicts Hitler. The first would be his infamous mustache, and you can see on his left hand the Nazi band. Okay, and out of his mouth comes this word Lebensraum. Now, Lebensraum is something the aim of Hitler, his foreign policy aim, Lebensraum, which is living space. Now, the whole idea behind this living space was to create a Central European empire, which is what we'll be focusing on today in this session. Now, what does this mean? It means dominion over Europe and the world. Now, it's very important that it starts off in Europe and followed by expansion into the world. We'll be looking very carefully at how this would be done. First of all, you have to understand the Treaty of Versailles in 1919, signed by Germany, pretty much weakened Germany military. Nevertheless, having said that, in 1933, January, Hitler, when he came to power as the Chancellor, he ordered the army to secretly rearm themselves. So in the first 4 years, 1933, 34, 35, 3 years. In the first 3 years, Hitler rearmed Germany sufficiently, and in 1936, right up to 1939, you can see Hitler was testing two sides. One, he was testing the League of Nations, see how they would react when he starts breaking the Treaty of Versailles stage by stage. The second would be to test his army and to improve the military strategies and skills of the soldiers by using different military strategies and warfare methods, such as blitzkrieg, where you use force and speed in order to overpower your enemy. Okay, so all these was done in order to create a Central European empire. It all begins with a vision. Hitler was a visionary person in a sense, and he wanted to dominate Europe and become the most powerful person in Europe. And once you're a most powerful person in Europe, you get all the resources, manpower, everything, you get to control. And from Europe, you start to expand and overpower other nations as well, and so possibly the world. Whether Germany would be able to overpower America is a what if question, because that never happened, because the Nazis lost the war. Now, just want to run through with you this point: dominion over Europe and the world. Having achieved his aim, Hitler would be at the head of the most powerful state in Europe and possibly the world, provided, of course, he achieves his aim. But it requires a step-by-step process. So this is the last method of how Hitler would achieve his foreign policy aim, basically, okay, is to create a Central European empire using military might, military force, okay? And I want to end this entire series by looking at this question. What actions had Hitler taken by the end of 1935 to break the Treaty of Versailles? This is a very quick recap on what were the actions he took. In our last few episodes, we have been talking about certain parts of the aims, the foreign policy aims of Hitler. But over here, we will be looking at this 4-mark question, which is what actions had Hitler taken by the end of 1935 to break the Treaty of Versailles? Remember, it is a 4-mark question, you only need to give 4 points. So how are you going to start answering this? What actions had Hitler taken? Hitler had taken a number of actions. You can start off like that. Firstly, secondly, thirdly, fourthly. Okay, just a very brief intro. That's one method. Some students will go straight into it. Hitler had taken, okay, the name of the action by the end of 1935. In addition to that, he took another action by the end of the same year. Okay, so it depends on your strategy, but always have 4 points. So let's look at some of these points. Okay, so what actions had Hitler taken by the end of 1935? Hitler had taken a variety of actions. Firstly, Hitler refused to pay any more reparation, and which effectively breaks the Treaty of Versailles, since of course he needs to pay reparation in order to fulfill, as part of his fulfillment of the Treaty of Versailles. So how did he break it? What actions did he take? He refused to pay any more reparations. Now you might be thinking the League of Nations, being the organization that should uphold the Treaty of Versailles, since that is their aim, would play a major role here. But because of the Great Depression, all the members of the League of Nations started to look inwardly into their own issues. They did not invest much on military strength. They were focusing more on domestic issues, social needs, and all. So they did not invest a lot on military, and therefore they could not use force in order to ensure that Hitler does not break the Treaty of Versailles. So it's all about timing, and Hitler just refused to pay any more reparation. He did not want to pay any more reparation. Let's see what the League of Nations can do about it. What are they going to do? They too are suffering from the Great Depression. So are they going to be focusing on us, Germany, or are they going to be focusing on their own country? The fact that the League of Nations didn't do anything tells you what the answer would be. Next, Hitler even took Germany out of the League of Nations. He did this in October 1933 using a plebiscite in his own country. He asked the people to vote, and the people voted to leave the League of Nations, of which, of course, Hitler was delighted. Okay. Next, in 1933, Hitler began to rearm in secret. So remember, the question is asking by the end of 1935. When you say by the end, it means until 1935. What did Germany do? So in 1933, Hitler began rearming in secret, which was going against the Treaty of Versailles, right? It's going against the Treaty of Versailles, which states Germany must be demilitarized. Well, in this situation in 1933, Hitler began to rearm in secret. Now, the question is, why in secret? Why would he want to rearm in secret? Now, this is a very telling tale on how strong Germany was military in 1933. If you're doing something in secret, you do not want somebody to know, because if they knew about it, they'll put a stop to it. If Germany was strong, why do it in secret? They could do it openly, and if the League of Nations were to come in and put a stop, they can react, they can defend themselves. But when you do it in secret, okay, when you do it in secret, means you are weak. You do not have the military strength to face up to the League of Nations at the time in 1933. Then Hitler attempted an Anschluss with Austria in 1934, which failed because what happened was Hitler wanted to take over Austria, okay, following the assassination of Dollfuss. Italy was, under Mussolini, was afraid that, okay, you take over Austria, what's going to happen? Once you take over Austria, you might be targeting Italy next, all right? So Italy was scared that a very aggressive Germany would take over Italy. So what happened was Mussolini sent his troops to Brenner Pass at the border between Austria and Italy. So he sent the army, his army, to Brenner Pass, and when he did that, okay, Hitler got scared and started to retreat. Hitler was scared and began to retreat. Now, the reason for this would tell you so much about the Hitler's army strength in 1934. If he was strong, he would face off with Italy's army, but he wasn't strong at the time because in reality he backed off. In fact, he claimed no responsibility for the murder of Dollfuss, who was the Chancellor of Austria. Okay, so having said all that, okay, what other actions that Hitler did? Hitler reintroduced conscription. Since 1933, he reintroduced conscription, and his army actually, his soldiers actually came up to 500,000. Okay, 500,000. Okay, so he announced in 1935 to the world that his army would be 500,000. Now there is a repercussion to this announcement. France, who was the neighbor of Germany, okay, got scared and decided to make a deal with Stalin from Soviet Russia, because Soviet Russia was afraid that a strong Germany would be a threat to Soviet Union, because our friend Stalin had read Mein Kampf. He had read the mind of Hitler through his book, Hitler's book called Mein Kampf. And whatever Hitler was saying publicly, okay, I'm doing this, I'm doing that because of European peace. You know, if I have an army of 500,000, it'll be good for the League of Nations, you know, because I might even come back to the League of Nations and give the strength it needs, especially during Europe in the early 1930s. Okay, having strong military presence or military backing with peaceful intention was very popular at the time among politicians. Okay, so Hitler was promising that they will come back, Germany will come back and join the League and things like that. Okay, so the politicians were not very concerned about the increase in the military strength of Germany, because Hitler was convincing them that, hey guys, listen up. We're doing this because to protect Europe, to maintain the peace in Europe, which is very nice to hear by the European politicians. Okay, but in reality, that wasn't the case. Okay, Hitler wanted more than that. He wanted a Central European empire. If we have read his Mein Kampf, like what Stalin did, we can sift through the lies of what Hitler was saying. And Stalin did that. Stalin read Hitler's book, Mein Kampf, and he was very wary about the intention of Hitler. And he looked at every single action from 1935 onwards, from 1936 onwards, as part of achieving the whole Lebensraum idea. Okay, so next point here, he announced his intention of creating a military air force. So Hitler did that, and Hitler even signed an Anglo-German naval agreement. Now this agreement is very interesting. Okay, let's look at the term. It allowed him a fleet that was 35% the size of the British fleet. So if Britain's fleet had 100,000, okay, 100,000 battleships, Germany was only allowed 35,000 battleships. The agreement also allowed Germany to have 45% of Britain's submarines. Now, why would Britain give into this? There are three reasons why Britain would give in to Germany. First of all, they felt that the Treaty of Versailles, the British, they felt that the Treaty of Versailles was too harsh for Germany. Second, they wanted to rectify the mistakes from the past, okay, and allow Germany to defend themselves, okay, for defensive purposes, as well as what Hitler was saying, it will help with the League of Nations when they come back to the League of Nations, if they ever come back. But he was promising that the possibility was there. So, well, Britain was pretty happy with that, okay? And of course, the third reason why Britain allowed for this was because Germany was arguing that they were defenseless, okay, defenseless. Now, let's go into the details of that. It ties back with what Hitler did. Hitler announced an army of 500,000. So just imagine that. Under the Treaty of Versailles, you can only have 100,000 men. Now he had increased it to 500,000. Okay, that's one. How would France react to that? France made a deal with Russia, okay, with Soviet Russia, and they did a mutual assistance back. Okay, so now you have like a two-front war. If Germany were to invade France, Russia would back up France, vice versa. Okay, so Germany felt threatened. Germany themselves felt threatened and appealed to Britain's good conscience to say that, you know, I would be attacked by these two hostile neighbors, France and Russia. And under the Treaty of Versailles, you're shackling me. You do not allow me to rearm myself. And so the British were like, yeah, it's not fair for you guys. The Treaty of Versailles is too harsh on you for your own good, for your own safety. We allow you to increase your fleet in order to defend your country. And so Hitler signed the Anglo-German Naval Agreement. This took place in 1935. Okay, and so these are basically the actions that Hitler had taken by the end of 1935 to break the Treaty of Versailles. Okay, thank you very much for paying attention during this class, and until the next time, take care. Bye-bye.